Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm doing an astrology report for the month of June, and I'll be outlining some of the key overall themes taking place this month, along with some key dates where important events are taking place. I'll give an overview of what it all means. Before I do that, I just want to clarify, as I always do, that the astrology doesn't control our lives. It gives us a framework to help us understand what is unfolding around us, so we can then make best use of the opportunities provided. So it gives us that means of understanding where the opportunities for growth are, where the natural flow of development is going, and from there it's up to us to actually take action aligned with the kind of natural flow of the energy, rather than trying to fight against the current, as it were. But it's up to each and every one of us to take responsibility for choosing the right course of action based on how we need to be personally interacting with the natural flow in order to achieve the kind of goals that are right for who we are as individuals. Now, in terms of the astrology for June, I'll start off with the sun's passage. So we start off with the sun in Gemini. So this overall theme is all about the rational mind. It's about our perception, our thinking, but a lot of it is basically looking at how old mental programming dictates the way we tend to make choices or how we tend to perceive things. And it's also looking at where we are operating from unconscious biases. So with Gemini, it's a very dualistic kind of sign, because obviously every truth has two sides. So one of the challenges is to not be attached to any one point of view over another. It's about learning to be or develop that mental detachment from the information itself, so that we can try and see things from a higher vantage point. Because in some respects it's a bit like the spider's web, if you like, and all the different threads, the different pieces of information. If we're attached to a certain way of seeing things or a certain interpretation of information, in effect we get stuck to the web and we can't see the whole picture. The only way to see things clearly is to be open-minded enough to rise above any one point of view and see the broader picture of how all the different points are actually interconnected, and how everything in life is naturally connected to one another. And the main goal that we need to be aiming for during the Gemini transit is to learn to move beyond the need to analyse everything, move beyond the need to see everything through the different labels we attribute to objects and situations, and instead learn to be present. So move beyond the labels and into that ability to see things as they are. So it's being in the present moment and having that perception that coming through unfiltered. It's not being coloured by perceptual biases, it's not coloured by any kind of dogma that we may be holding on to, or any kind of narrow-mindedness. It's that capacity to be in the present moment and to experience reality as it is. Gemini also deals with communication. Now, the main purpose of communication, in effect, is to convey the information that we gathered ourselves to another person. But the communication part is also about listening. It's about our capacity to receive information, because if we're not able to listen, we can't learn. Because listening is a key part of being able to expand our level of awareness and expand our current understanding through receiving information from other people who've experienced things a different way, or have gathered information that we haven't seen personally. So it's developing the capacity to communicate as honestly as we can, without buying into everything hook, line and sinker straight away. So it's having that necessary detachment and that skepticism to some extent to the information presented, but also being willing to acknowledge the possibility it could be true, and that what we think is true is actually not complete or is outright false. So it's developing that non-attachment and that humility to be able to receive information which directly challenges our current understanding, but we're willing to kind of suspend skepticism enough to entertain the information without taking it as gospel, as it were. So it's that capacity to entertain ideas without taking them as gospel. So, and this is the way that we learn to move or develop the mental perceptions closer to the truth. It's about being willing to embrace information that challenges our understanding without necessarily taking it at face value. It's learning to question everything. It's having that necessary curiosity to not just settle with our current understandings. Having that beginner's mind, if you like. The only way you can continue to learn something is if you maintain that student mindset, that capacity to acknowledge that we don't know everything. There's always more information to learn. So it's better to have that healthy curiosity, that willingness to question our current understanding, question the general narratives that we're experiencing, and be prepared to entertain thoughts or concepts which challenge our current level of perception or allow us to move closer to the truth, which is the ultimate aim of being present and being grounded in the truth of life, and not just buying into all the kind of deceptions that are going on. So being honest in our speech is a key thing to work on if we're not already doing it. But at the same time, it's important that our speech, we maintain compassion within our speech. So it's all well and good knowing the truth, but truth delivered in a harsh way will not be received very well. So it's remembering to be loving in our speech, so that right thinking, right speech, if you like. These are the things to be working on when the sun is in Gemini. Then on the summer solstice, as the sun enters Cancer, marking the next quadrant of development, or the next season, now it's looking at emotional conditioning, if you like, or looking at attachments to our personal past. Cancer at its highest level is all about that capacity to nurture. It's about that ability to feel things clearly. It's about that. Cancer is the subconscious mind, if you like. It's the capacity to become more aware or illuminate that area of our lives. It's also becoming grounded and rooted. So it's one of the key aims to work towards within the Sun's transit of Cancer is emotional stability. Now, I'm not saying that everyone's irrational or anything like that, but what I mean is that our emotions are not necessarily triggered by our thoughts or our perceptions of our environment. It's about having that necessary detachment between our thoughts and emotions, so creating that space between the two so our emotions aren't triggered by our thoughts or triggered by what other people say. It's about having that capacity to be stable within our emotions so they don't get triggered easily. It's being in touch with them without being drowned by them, because emotions ideally need to be contained to some extent. Now, it doesn't mean like contain like water in a glass. It's more like contain like water in a river. The river is flowing smoothly, but the water is contained by its banks. It's not overflowing and flooding everything, but it's not dammed either, i.e. blocked up by trying to numb ourselves. So it's about the capacity for the emotions to flow freely, but have that sufficient self-control over them through understanding where the emotions get triggered by thought and stopping or creating that space between the thought and the emotion, so our emotions aren't driven crazy by our own thinking or perception, and we're not triggered by what other people say. So it's understanding that we are fundamentally responsible for our own emotions and the emotions that get expressed, and we're also responsible for our own nurturing. Also, one of the things Cancer is about developing that rootedness, that deep emotional self-sufficiency, so the capacity to nurture ourselves, and it's tapping into the deep waters of the subconscious, the kind of imagination, dreams, and the capacity to nurture ourselves. Tapping into this wellspring of energy allows us to kind of tap into our dreams or our imagination, because this is the key step that we need to work through in order to maximise when the sun goes into Leo. But that's a story for another day. But suffice to say, the sun's transit through Cancer is a time where you need to overcome any emotional programming, overcome any attachments to the past, so that we can learn to live in the present. So if we've been doing the work of the sun in Gemini, where it's becoming present, so we're in control of our own thoughts, this then means that when the sun's going through Cancer, rather than continuing to trigger old emotional patterns through the same habitual thinking, we're now eliminating the emotional residue, if you like, from the past, and learn to be in the present moment emotionally as well as mentally. Now, in terms of the other things taking place, this month, we have a new moon in Gemini on the 3rd. So this new moon gives us an opportunity to focus more clearly on the aspects of Gemini that we need to work on. So it could be that we decide that we want to look at illuminating or becoming more aware of our own way of communicating with the people, or looking at our capacity to listen, or do we seek to be honest in our communication, or do we allow license for white lies and stuff, which anything which isn't truth will ultimately create harm for ourselves anyway, so it's not really worth doing that. It's also looking at, are we tactful in our communication, or are we blunt to the point where even if the truth that we're offering could help someone, they're not going to be able to receive it, or they're not going to receive it well because it's not delivered in a loving way. And it's also about that capacity to be open to new information and overcoming any tendencies towards gossip, or undermining our own intuition through excessive thinking and self-doubt. And it's about that capacity to be open for new information, open to new insights, and open-minded about what other people are saying, so we don't take what other people are saying personally. We entertain what they're saying in case there's fundamental truths in there that will help us to see the world more clearly as it is, not how we think it is. Next date along will be the 17th. This is when we have the full moon in Sagittarius. So with the sun in Gemini, this is obviously a very mental time, but Gemini only really deals with the surface level of reality. So it's about the immediate and the sensate, if you like, so the information coming through the senses. Whereas Sagittarius is more about deeper understanding. It's understanding the fundamental nature of things. It's understanding the natural laws and the overriding patterns that govern everything. Because everything operates within a natural framework. No information is truly isolated. It's part of broader patterns. So with the full moon in Sagittarius, it gives us an opportunity to balance the student and the teacher, if you like, student and philosopher. It's about the capacity to not only deal with the questions, but look at the answers that we typically hold on to and the beliefs that we have, and making sure that they're the ones that allow us to move closer into alignment with the natural laws, allow us to have that faith and optimism in a broader worldview that is expansive, and seeks wider understanding, not just seeking to preach or seek to validate our own way of seeing things. And it's about learning to be open to new experiences. So Gemini is about information, Sagittarius is more about direct experiences which challenge our underlying assumptions and push us to change our worldview in order to see reality more closely as it is, based on the natural order of things, not based on human thought systems, if you like, or human ideologies. And the final day this month will be the 20th. This is when Neptune turns retrograde and will stay retrograde until the 25th of November. So we'll probably start feeling the effects of this in the weeks prior, as Neptune is slowing right down. But with Neptune retrograde, this is a time where the veils of illusion become very thin. So this is a time where I may find that our psychic senses become much more intense, if you like, and maybe feel the energy of other people more readily. This is also a time where, with the veils of the illusion being very thin, and as a result the power of the ego weakens somewhat, this is a time where we need to make sure that we're focusing on some kind of spiritual practice, if we're not already, in order to become more grounded within ourselves, and to make sure that that whatever we're experiencing is just our own stuff. We're not taking on other people's emotional dross, if you like. So this is a time where I need to make sure we develop that spiritual strength within ourselves, and to recognise when these issues that we're feeling are our own and when it's actually other people. So spiritual practice allows us to disconnect from the world around us, or disconnect from all the chaos and drama of the world around us, and to become more connected within ourselves, and to become more grounded and able to understand what is actually our own stuff that we need to be working on and what is stuff that we're picking up from other people. And if we're operating from a place of unconditional love and compassion, this energy has more clout, if you like, at this time, because the energy has a great effect on the collective. With the collective ego weakened during this time, it's important that we make sure that we do not become susceptible to illusions, that we do not allow deception to take hold. It's making sure that we become grounded in truth. And Neptune is like the crown chakra. It's about dissolving attachments to mental concepts or memories or anything like that. It's about the dissolution of attachments that drive the ego, and at the end of it, it's about that rebirth of dissolution of the ego in its current form in order for a new ego to be reborn at the end of the retrograde that is more attuned with who we are. So this is a time where the ego becomes more malleable, so it's vitally important that we make sure that we're engaging in some kind of spiritual practice that focuses on truth and love, rather than allowing deception and illusion to take reign and cause all kinds of self-destruction in the process. So any kind of spiritual practice that will help raise our vibration and become more aware of what is our own stuff and what is other people's that we don't need to be carrying, the better able we are to navigate this period. So how does this guide for the astrology for June? As I said, the main things to remember is this is a time for transforming the rational mind through shedding mental attachments and to seek to live in the present moment rather than living in our heads and seeing everything through the lenses of our own thoughts. And later on, it's about connecting with our emotions if we're not already, but it's understanding that they're conditioned by our own thoughts to some extent. So if we use this month to clear out dysfunctional thinking or habitual thinking that typically triggers emotions within us, to bring the thoughts under control so that we can then better able to bring the emotions under control, so that they're not suppressed, they flow smoothly, but we're not attached to them, so we're not liable to go through strong mood swings just because of conditioning from the past. It's about shedding the conditioning, breaking or clearing out our past to live more clearly in the present moment and free of old subconscious programming we've picked up usually in our childhood but no longer actually serves us. This is a good time to clear out old subconscious programming so we can live in the present moment and maximise our potential for living our best life, to no longer seeing the world through the lenses of the past or worrying about the future. It's being grounded in the present moment where all truth and reality actually exists. And by being more grounded in the present moment, we can learn to live our best lives, we can move beyond conditioning, and we can become more detached from the world around us so that we're no longer triggered by what happens around us. We can see things as they are and without any kind of judgment, fear or emotional reactions. So may June bring you many new insights, much opportunity to become free from the past in order to live in the present moment. Take care, be blessed.